Welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. Yo, peace and welcome to the Boom Bap Kingdom. We're here and we're chilling. You guys know, if you follow the channel, if you watch, if you subscribe, I did a couple of tests in my last few videos where I compared the original MPC60 with the emulation from Machine Plus, as well as the Akai Force. I did a standard test in standard mode. Then I went back and I did it in MPC60 mode with Machine Plus and the Akai Force. And we did some comparisons, pitching samples, and my findings were very interesting, and your guys' comments were very interesting. So first off, let's clear the air. In no way, shape, or form am I bashing or speaking against the new Akai gear. My favorite machine to use is actually the Akai Force. A lot of people chimed in on the comments for those videos, and what I was showing is the Akai Force sounds extremely similar to all the modern MPCs. If you don't have a vintage MPC to compare a modern one to, my videos will give you a pretty good example of what that sounds like. There is no right or wrong. That's first and foremost. So there's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. It's just what the sampler is capable of, regardless if that's Machine Plus, Push 3, if it's any MPC, if it's the Force, Tracker Plus. The list goes on because there's so many. And each one of those will have their own characteristics. The real science behind this is how you choose to use it and what it's for. When I created that video and I really listened to the sonics, I was pretty amazed that the MPC60 was as clear as it sounds. And I'll make sure to link those videos in the description. So if you haven't had a chance to go hear those comparisons, I'll put those links in the description and you guys can go check those out. Everything is time-stamped, so you could just kind of run right through it. But it was very interesting how when I was in standard mode on Machine Plus and the Force, how the 60, in my opinion, sounded the clearest. The clarity, the highs and the mids were accentuated, and I didn't really expect that. In all honesty, I expected Machine Plus to be the most clear. Then I expected the Force to accentuate maybe the mids, and I really expected the 60 to be more on the lower punchy warm side, but it was kind of the opposite. The Machine Plus was kind of the mids in standard mode. The Force, which is probably on par with all the Akai series samplers of today, meaning the Live 2, XXSE. I keep excluding the 1 because I think the 1 has cheaper electronics or less expensive sample engine, DACs, etc. So I don't really believe, though, the 1 sounds like a Live 2, XXSE, or Force. Not that it's not good, I just don't think it's as good. When I did the comparison and the 60 was so clear, it really threw me off. So one thing that's very interesting about these golden era samplers, when you think SP1200, when you think MPC60, you automatically think 12 bits at 24 or 24.1 kilohertz for the frequency. The MPC60 does not use 24.1 like the SP1200. It actually uses 40 kilohertz for its frequency. It is 12-bit, but it's 40K. So that will make it brighter than the 1200, and that will also eliminate that ring that the 1200 is famous for. So the 60 really sounds different. It's just kind of in its own class. The interesting thing was when I put Machine Plus into MPC60 mode and I had the Force in MPC60 mode, Machine Plus sounded almost identical to the MPC60, whereas the Force still accentuated the low end of the sample frequency. I found that very interesting. Now, I have a theory, because a lot of people, especially the older producers that come from the vintage sampler era, there's been a lot of, I don't want to say negative talk, but I will say there's just been a lot of talk about how the modern MPCs don't sound as good as the older gear, etc., etc. But I was really thinking about this, and I want you guys to follow me in this conversation, like really do the knowledge to what I'm saying. And I want you to get in the comments and see if what I'm saying is logical. So in the beginning, Emu and Roger Lynn / Akai, they had no intention of rap producers using their equipment. In fact, they were unfamiliar with the genre altogether. They really didn't move units to the crowd they were attempting to reach, which was your home rock band or rock studio that maybe didn't have an in-house drummer. It really was not meant for what we turned it into, connecting a turntable, a mixer, and then having your SP1200 or your MPC60 and your chopping samples. Dave Rossum and Roger Lynn never knew that that was going to happen. Once we figured out, oh snap, you need this or that, you know, SP1200, Akai S950, MPC60, S950, or Ensoniq EPSM, etc. Once we figured out what was going on, that's when those machines started to sell. As time moves on, and this is all going to loop into, no pun intended, but it's going to loop back into the sonics of then and today. So I'll just fast forward a little bit. Once Roger Lynn, once Dave Rossum got hip to, oh wow, it's those hippity hoppity guys, those rippity rappity guys. They're the ones buying our stuff. Let's shift and let's market to that crowd. Bang. In the beginning, when you listen to hip hop, and especially the stuff that was coming out of New York in 90, 91, 92, this stuff was primarily jazz sample oriented or soul sample oriented. When you listen to jazz in particular, you do get the upright bass, you get some deep upright bass in jazz, but horns, keys, those frequencies occupy mids and highs in your frequency range. You will get some obviously upright bass, but an upright bass is not an 808 bass. Two totally different bass sounds, similar to a bass guitar, not an 808 bass. 808 bass is manufactured through synthesis. It's just sine waves that you're, shortening and manipulating, and then you get your deep boom. That's why you could turn an 808 into a bass line if you know what you're doing. When you listen to New York early boom bap, we're talking 89, 90, 91, 92, especially with the Pete Rock era, things, even Q-Tip with Tribe, all of that stuff was jazz oriented. So we're talking mids and highs in that frequency range. When you fast forward, you definitely get into the trap drill era, which is heavy bass centric. So what I personally believe is Akai is marketing to the sound that is most prevalent in the day. So if trap and drill are the most popular styles of rap slash hip hop, it makes sense that the sampler would be geared toward the style, hence the low frequencies. So when you look at the force, you think EDM. When you think EDM, you think four on the floor, doomph, 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 heavy kick, heavy bass. When you think MPC, modern, you think trap, drill, heavy bass, hence the tone coming out of the sampler engine and the DAC. It's just, it accentuates the low tones because that's what they believe at Akai. That genre dominates the market, and their sampler is accentuating the sound that is dominating the market. So I believe that they altered the sample engine. They moved away from accentuating the mids and highs of the jazz samples and loops and the soul samples and loops to a sample engine and a DAC that accentuates the lows in the frequency because the style had changed. In other words, one style fell out of favor, the other style became more popular. This is just my theory, and I believe this to be true. If you're a company like, say, Native Instruments, I think they kept to a more neutral sound with Machine Plus, with Machine. I really hope that clears things up and people can get away from the sonic discussion and just get back to creating dope stuff. Because at the end of the day, all these samplers do the same thing. You just have to think about what you want your music to sound like. Choose the machine that can generate the sound you want and has the workflow you want. So think about workflow, think about sonics, and then make some joints. You heard? And let me hear them. Word is bond. I want to say peace to all who like, share, subscribe, everybody that's been rocking with the Boom Bap Kingdom. Get in those comments. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend, and I'm going to leave you with a BBK salute. Peace.